Hello, I'm John Muir Laws. I'm an artist, wildlife biologist, and explorer. And today, I want to examine this painting by artist-explorer Tony Foster. He talked to 15 people who were tremendous inspirations to him and asked them what they thought were the most beautiful places on the planet. And then he visited each of those locations and, using his medium of watercolor on large format paper, explored those places to share them with the world. And this one is special in his collection, Exploring Beauty, because this is the one that Tony Foster chose himself. For each of us, there may be a place special in our heart because of early childhood experiences, and no matter what grandeur you're looking at, nothing will ever compare to that location. For Tony Foster, this location along the southwestern coast of England was that place for him. Let's take a look at a few features of this environment that he's included in this painting that just make it so intimate and special. Let's compare the way that the sky and these sea cliffs are handled. If you look at the sky, it's all soft edges blending into each other. This cloudscape is handled with a technique that watercolorists call wet and wet. You first make your paper really damp, and then by putting in little blotches of color, you let those spread on the paper. So you don't actually have full control of what your watercolor is doing. But if you know your paper, you know your paint, and you even understand the humidity of the day, you can make little predictions and you'll get these happy accidents that often create incredible skyscapes like this. So this soft sky, rain coming down, beams of light streaming through the clouds. We've got these puffy, what are called cumulus clouds. So these are places where warm, moisture-laden air is rising up off the water. And when it gets to a certain elevation, the water vapor changes to little droplets of liquid, and the cloud forms in an instant. And that elevation at which that happened is right here. So there's water vapor coming up, invisible to you. It hits what's called that dew point, and you see this flat bottom cloud. And as you look back, you can see just a whole series of these little flat bottom, fair weather cumulus clouds puffing right back here. So that's a wet and wet sky. And contrast that with the glazing technique that is used here on these cliffs. When you're glazing, you put down one coat of paint and then you let that dry. You can then place the next coat on top of that, the next coat on top of that. You can layer up several glazes of color, and you get this very fine, controlled use of the watercolor. So the wet and wet is dynamic and alive. The glazing technique, you can be very, very precise. And these two together really make for this wonderful contrast of the shoreline and the sky above. The next major element in this picture is the water itself. First and foremost, Tony has captured the color, the intense, warm, turquoise color of the water off the coast. These pale blue lines in here turning to white lines this way help us keep track of the angle at which we are seeing this water. Out at a distance, when we're looking at ridges, at sort of lines in the water that are far away, close to our horizon, we're going to see those as parallel to the horizon. And as we come down into the cove in front of us, the direction of the deflection of the waves is going to turn and come into this cove. So you see this progressive change in the angle of the waves coming in here. So these choices of colors are specific to this place. Tony, as he explores in different places, has a different palette for the water, but this is what reminds him of his homeland. Another strategy that Tony is using to carve this landscape is called light against dark and dark against light. If there is a bright object that you want to really pop in your picture, you put that next to a darker area. If there's a dark element that you want to pop, that will be emphasized by putting it next to the light. So let's take a look at intentional adjacencies of light and dark in a few key places on this painting. Right up in here, where this cliff meets these far cliffs, notice there's a shadow of a cloud that is obscuring part of the cliff right back in there. So because of that, we're going darker on this, and that pops forward this light edge of the nearby cliff. These clouds that float all over the area, they're moving around, so Tony can place them anywhere he chooses in his picture. So as those clouds move around, he can use a moment where the cloud comes in on this back one, pops this forward. He can say, like, that's the moment, that's the coloration I wanted to use to really show the different shapes, the different spaces in this. You see similar use of light against dark right up in here to make this little grassy slope that has come down here above this cliff pop out. The dark right behind it is just the right tool for that. So again, this idea of light against dark and dark against light gives you extra contrast and makes these little moments in these sort of key moments of interest a lot more attractive in the painting. So as you look at this, your eye is pulled to these places where there is higher contrast. So you look up, and where are you going to look? You're going to look right down in here. And then your eye might wander out to the little lighthouse on top and back. Or your eye will be pulled down here into the cove. So this is this sort of secret, almost sort of pirate cove that is right back in here. A really special place on this beach. And you look right in there, there's deliberate use of contrasting darks and lights that make this area also just sparkle as another jewel on the paper. A final collection of treasures. These are periwinkle shells that Tony Foster found among seaweed along the coast. No periwinkles were harmed in the creation of this painting. But after those periwinkles died, those shells were left behind. Tony Foster was able to assemble this little palette, this gradation of periwinkle shells that then picks up colors that are used in this. So if you look here, there's yellow here, there's yellow here, there's orange here, there's orange here, orange, orange, and browns in here on this side of the painting. So this is also, it reflects not just found objects in the place. So from the intimacy of this little collection of shells that might fill the pocket of a child walking along the beach, to the play of light and shadow as the clouds move across this landscape, we have an insight into a special landscape near and dear to the heart of artist and explorer Tony Foster.